Hey guys, if you like this content, I would greatly appreciate it if you guys like the video and subscribed to my channel. It helps make these videos worth it going forward.
What's up, guys? Altcoin Sherpa here with a crypto market review. As always, this is not financial advice. I'm not an expert. Do your own research. Okay, so Bitcoin is having a 7% move today or so, and it looks really good. Is this the bottom? I don't really know. I mean, personally, I don't think it's the bottom yet, but like it is pretty nice to see this overall price action. And I think the bottom is mostly in, but I'm still not dismissing like a potential run down to 28K or so. It's still the area that I'm really watching overall, and it would make sense for one last final shakeout. But that said, this is forming some sort of bottom structure, and we can go more into that on lower time frames as well. But for now, we'll just look at the Bitcoin dollar on the weekly. You can see this 89 EMA, and you can really use whatever EMA fits your preference. I mean, it could be like could be you could use like a 100, 200, and like it really just doesn't really matter, to be frank and honest with you. Yeah, you can like just use here's like a 100 EMA. Okay, so there's a 100 EMA. I don't really use, but you know, same thing, 190 or 89, like whatever you want to use. It doesn't really matter. But you can see this 100 EMA is solid support for right now. You know, price is tapping it overall several times on the weekly, and it's holding that support. We haven't seen this 100 EMA tapped in quite some time, and we have not seen the 200 EMA, the red line, tapped all the way since March of 2020, back with a COVID dump. That was like obviously like you know prime buying opportunity. But traditionally, the 200 EMA is a good place to buy at, and that's currently at around 25K. I expect that to probably keep creeping on up, obviously, because it's a lagging indicator. You know, maybe it'll hit like 28K or something like that within a little bit. But um, if the 200 EMA comes, then I think it's like a prime buying opportunity. That's like if Bitcoin does make this strong nuke down. I'm not dismissing it, of course, but for now, I'm just cautiously bullish in the short term. So, what are we looking at on the weekly overall? We can just start marking some levels with Bitcoin. Um, this overall area between 40K and 30K is a strong support level. And the reason I say that is because you can see just like tons of interaction with this overall level back in January of 2021, followed by May, June, and July. You can just see lots of price likes to trade in this area, and you can see it overall in volume profile as well, where there's a high volume node. That means that price likes to trade in this area. Generally, this is an area of strong support and resistance when you see like high volume nodes, just because price likes to trade there. Buyers and sellers are comfortable transacting within that area. Um, so for now, I would say that this demand area from like 30K to 35K, even if you just are a supply and demand trader, you would use this weekly candle here, and you can see price wicking down several times. And this area holding, which is exactly what you want to see. This is going to be support until shown otherwise, and the next support level up would be around that 20K area. Now, with that said, there's going to be a lot of liquidity like below it as well. So if there is like a big liquidation candle, then I would not be surprised to see that 25K level tapped. But until that time, there's still like a lot of price action and a lot of support levels before that time. So I wouldn't really quite call that ready to call like 28K quite yet. But it is an area that I'm viewing personally. Um, so what are we looking at overall? Like on higher time frame charts, we see that price. There's a significant weekly level here that price can't seem to break above around 43K, and alternatively, we are also just within this range. We're just within a range established from this weekly candle here, set back in late January. Price is just trading within this range, and I don't really see this changing a whole lot for a while. And I think that I certainly think that 33K or so will get tapped again before this is all over, or around there, um, for a lot of reasons. But I mean, as I said, this is just a trading range, so I expect both sides to really get tapped over and over again. Now let's look at the daily. If you look at Bitcoin and the way that it's formed previous bottoms, you'll see that these demand areas get tapped over and over and over again. And this is really what you want to see for a bottom to form, is you want to see some wicks into demand, and you want to see all the sellers just like getting absorbed, and all the buyers like buying up all those orders. And this is something that you really want to see. Like you see this back in January, you see it again once again in May, June, and July, and then you see it again once again in October and September. So you'll want to see lots of bidding at the lows, like several times, not just like once, not just twice, but you want to see it over the span of several days and weeks. Ideally, longer the consolidation, the stronger the move after. So that's why I have the idea of it going back down to 34 to 35K once again. I don't know how it's going to happen, or what is going to happen. But as you can see in the past, you can see that price wicks down into these areas several times around the lows. So that's why I think that 35K at a minimum, or 34K or 33K is going to come. And in terms of how it gets there, I don't quite know. I mean, this swing high on the daily around 44.7K is acting as resistance, as you can see, tapped twice and price could not close above it, and then it broke down. So what we could definitely see is like another move up to like 46K, and then another move down. That would be like a logical. This would be a logical move, in my opinion, for this to happen. Don't quite know, again, how it's going to look, or when it's going to go, but I do believe that it will go to 33, 34, 35K eventually. Now, what does the overall market structure look like? The overall market structure to me still is bullish. Or, I'm sorry, bearish. What we're seeing is still like lower highs and lower lows all across the board. You can just mark the lows, you can mark the highs as well, but to me, it's still bearish on all time frames. Now, what would change my overall bias? And I said this before back in early February, but one thing that would make me change my bias is if we establish a higher low here. And right now it's starting to look like it's potentially forming a higher low. And lows take a long time to form, as I always say. It takes several days or weeks for like these lows to form. Like, for instance, if you look back in January, if you look back in, I'm sorry, not January, September of 2021, it took like an entire month where price just chopped around and like made several legs down. And eventually this was the higher low that was formed, right? But you can start to see like these, but the thing that the catalyst for this breaking market structure back in September was the fact that this overall high marked on September 6th got broken. So like once this got broken, that's when we started to see a higher high. And you can also start to see shifts in market structure like before that. So for instance, like this was like a high and this was a low, again back in August. And what did we see after that? We saw like a higher high at this point, marked in September, and the key also was the fact that this established a higher low as well. So when you start to see these shifts in market structure, and you'll see it more like this, like in August, where it doesn't really take a whole lot of time, but you can still denote this as a high and a low. You'll compare that to right now, where you have a low established back in late January, and then a high established in mid-February around this 46K level. If this becomes a higher low, similar to like what we saw back in August of 2021, and if this breaks 46K, I think you can make a good argument that we are in a bullish market structure on the daily. And at that point, I'm really willing to consider my bias, but for right now, it still looks like a bearish market structure, especially on high time frame charts. But as I said, I think that largely the worst of it is over. I think that again we could see 33K again. I certainly think that's possible, but personally, I think that 28K, it is a level of high liquidity. It is an area that I'm viewing, and I do have orders all set below because I am comfortable with my current crypto exposure. But I really want to see where the next high is printed, if this is in fact a low. Because if we do break this 46K level, then I think you can start to make some serious arguments for it shifting in market structure. And it's also really good that this has taken such a long time to form this low as well, because the longer that price takes at a low, the more sustainable the low is. Like for instance, if it's just like you'll see this in like very bullish market structures where like price is like beasting up and then like a quick dip and then like going up again. The problem with these types of lows is that there isn't much support on the way back down. And it's not usually as sustainable of a move, especially in a bearish market structure context too. You want to start to see lows getting like taken. You want to see lows taking time to consolidate. So like a very quick example. Let's just like look at the bear market. This is 2018. You'll notice that these lows never took a long time to form. There are quick dips and there are quick dead count bounces. It's like quick low, move up strongly, dead count bounce, dead cat bounce. Like you can notice that it doesn't take very long at all for these lows to get established, right, in 2018, from 20K all the way down to 6K. Whereas if you compare it to now, you'll see that back in May, June, and July, we spent several months consolidating. Once again, back in September, we spent several months consolidating again. And right now, I believe that we are starting to form some sort of low. But you'll notice that the bounces compared to like the 20K price action, like these aren't really bounces. They're just like slow grind down. So like, we're just seeing like slow grind down like this. We're not seeing like quick move up like this. We're making lower highs. So that's like another thing to consider, is that when you start to see price chop around and form lows over longer periods of time, these lows are healthier, and these lows are better for sustainability than those like quick dead cat bounces, in my opinion. So what I'm really looking for now at this point, if this is an established low, is where the next high is going to be. And it's certainly possible that this just like continues to grind here and then breaks down lower. Like I'm not dismissing that at all. Like if that happens, then I'm just going to assume that this is like a lower high and then we just broke to a lower low. And at that point, I think that it's quite likely that we hit 28K at that point. But for now, this looks like a sustainable low and a potential break in market structure. And that's really what I'm starting to I'll start to really change my bias if that's the case. So another thing to consider too, if you start to scroll down to lower time frame charts, is really looking to see where all these EMAs are at. And EMAs are obviously lagging indicators, but you'll notice that the EMAs look a lot healthier right now than they have in the past. Like, back in September or December, you start to see large gaps between like the lagging EMA, like the 200 EMA, and price. And that's usually, when that happens, usually price is going to have strong resistance when it taps those lagging indicators. So for instance, this 200 EMA, this red line, acted as resistance several times on the way down. Like, price wicked up to that area, like, and it just like kept breaking down. And finally, we saw back in early February that price flipped it, and now it's flipped back as resistance. But you'll notice that there is not a large gap between price and the EMA, unlike back in December, where you'll see that there are these large gaps between price and EMA. And when there are large gaps, that usually means that these EMAs will act as strong support and resistance levels. And it's also important to also see that when price and the EMAs are clumping together, that means that price is consolidated to a degree that it's much healthier for a potential reversal. It's also true for the upside as well. When you start to see price topping out, you'll see that price starts to converge and start to see shifts in market structure back in November, and then the EMAs will just start to die off. Like when you start to see them converge like this, and then the EMA starts to flip bearish, like we saw back in November. That's when it was just like a confirmed bearish trend. So when you start to see this on the opposite side, on the like for bullish reversal, this is what you really want to see, is when all these EMAs start to clump together and consolidation to happen. So this is something to really take a look at and take into consideration for Bitcoin on lower time frame charts. But overall summary of this video would be that I am cautiously bullish in the short term, to be frank and honest with you, but I'm still of the opinion that we are going to see 33 to 34K once again before this is all over, before this is like a total macro bottom. So, something like this would make a lot of sense to me, where we see like move up and then like one mass big shakeout that gets bought up very quickly. But I largely think that we are going to be in a trading range for right now between like this 33 and 45K level. And additionally, I do think that it's quite possible that we are in a larger trading range between 30K and also like 60K. I think that that's possible for the rest of the year. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.